coming back at ya with another episode. That's how we're starting this.
I love it. BYOE. Bring your own energy.
Oh,
Bring your own energy.
Is that a new phrase that the kids are saying?
That's what the kids are saying. Actually, it's my Peloton instructor.
Oh, well, that's fun.
I actually really love it.
I'm sure they're with it. Peloton people are with it.
I do think she's a millennial, but she's really down with the Gen Z times. So I think that phrase is going to stick. I think it's going to create a movement.
BYOE.
BYOE. Me too.
I'm here for it. That's another thing the kids say, right? Or is that old now?
I feel like that anyone could say that. That
Write in, tell us.
Yeah.
Are we old? Yes or no?
Let us know. Are we cool? Somebody let us know. Okay, anyway, I'm excited for today's episode.
Me
because I love hacks. I love productivity. I love hacks. I love double dipping. I love time saving. And we have a great sponsor today too. Well, today's episode is sponsored by Creative Market, which I've been using probably since it was founded.
Since
many
the
years
dark
ago.
ages.
Since the dark ages. And it's your one-stop shop for design assets. And we've been really using it for quite a few things as we've grown our business and tapping into so many ways that we can delegate and hack our business to be more successful and to take things off of our plate. So I'm excited to share those tips with you today. We're going to share 7 hacks to work smarter and save time as a designer.
I love the word, how much you're saying hacks. We love hacks. I feel like I could have been a lumberjack in another life. That's how much I love hacking stuff.
My 5-year-old son wrote like a Father's Day. This is what I love about my father. And he wrote that, I love that my dad likes getting out tree stumps with an axe.
Does he do that frequently?
Not frequently. No, once he did, but it's also on an episode of Bluey. So he may have confused the two.
Okay. Dad, Bluey, I'm not sure which one, but love them either way.
It's called Stump Fest. It's when you take out all the stumps. Anyway,
stop talking to me about Bluey all the time, Ilana. Bluey's never going to happen for me.
It's always happening for me. My family loves Bluey, and I'm not ashamed. Anyway, okay, so we're going to talk about ways that we have been more productive and been able to double dip and really make things more efficient in our business because we are all about that efficient life. And when you are a business owner, especially a creative one, you often have to do things way, way, way outside of what your actual skill set is. Like if you want to be a graphic designer, you're going to have to do all these other things. And so if you can find little nuggets of how you can work smarter, it'll really help you speed up the process and take some burden off of your back. And I'm really excited to share 7 of the ways we're doing that with our business.
Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. I feel like that's one of the phrases.
Is it a Gen Z one?
I think it's just on the TikTok. So like every time someone is doing their makeup, they're like, I'm going to tell you a story. Let's get into it. How was that impression? Okay.
I don't watch a lot of those.
Okay. Well, I do.
I watch plenty of animal videos and like fails and stuff.
I also do that. Yeah. I guess I watch a lot of TikTok. Anywho, here's the tricks that we've got going up our sleeves. They're going up there. They're hiding in there. And we're going to roll up our sleeves and let them all out. Okay. The first one, double dipping. We say this, we are broken records when we talk about double dipping because we say this on every webinar, every podcast, every training. We are always talking about double dipping, but not the disgusting kind where you're like dipping your chip, putting it. It's 2023. We don't do that anymore. Double dipping is so
2020 changed a lot of things for us.
Yeah. But we like double dipping our income. And
love that.
Love it. Okay. So one of the ways we do that is we look for ways that work that we're creating for one income stream can be repurposed for a different income stream. It's pretty great. How do you do that, Katie?
Well, we're looking for overlap in things that we can make one time and then use in multiple different ways. So you can make a piece of art and instead of just posting it to Instagram and saying, that's the end of its life, it lived a sad, sad, lonely life and it got 40 likes in the end. No, we want to let it live a full, beautiful life. And we want to use it in our portfolio. We want to show the process behind it and post that on Instagram. We want to pin it to Pinterest. We want to send it out and see if we can get somebody to license it and put it on a t-shirt or a tote bag or some bedding. We want to squeeze as much juice out of that fruit as we possibly can. It's so juicy.
You mentioned it's so juicy.
And you just gotta squeeze.
You mentioned the like taking something you've designed, let's say for social media or for a client, and then repurposing it for licensing. That's one of the like fastest ways I see to do this is you can take rejected logos or a rejected illustration that someone hired you for a commission and they didn't like, and you can repurpose that into a greeting card design and then sell that in your Etsy shop. Or you can, those pieces that didn't get picked by the client or those sketches or the things you created just for social media, which is such a weird thing to say, can be repurposed into products for passive income. They can be repurposed for art licensing. They could even be turned into like digital products that you could then sell on something like Creative Market, which would be a really great passive income stream.
So what are some types of things that you can think of that you could repurpose and sell on Creative Market, for example?
Let's
get people's wheels turning.
Ooh, I love a turning wheel. Okay, so one of the really accessible ones I found is to take old rejected logos, and you could then create a template out of them and post them as branded templates. This is really nice for people who can't afford to hire a graphic designer and are starting a small business and they want to buy like a logo template and they just want to update the file. So that's one option. Another option is to take, like I said, a rejected sketch or illustration and then turn it into a greeting card to put in your Etsy shop. If you have patterns or illustrations you've done, you could create digital assets like patterns or just an illustration pack that people can download to put up using their collateral. You can even get like social media templates. If you've created social media posts and created a whole series of things, you could kind of change them a little bit and then put them available as a whole set. Some of the things we've bought, actually, we'll talk about this one later, so I won't even mention it now. The other thing is brushes. If you've created a system where you are adding texture, or maybe by hand you're creating texture to add to a project, you can then take those textures and bundle them and then sell them on a place like Creative Market. And there's no overhead for that. You've already done the work. It's just sitting on your hard drive. Why not repurpose it into something that could create a passive income stream? So
I really look for that low-hanging fruit.
We really like these food
the
analogies,
juiciest fruits is what we're looking for. That's how we prioritize projects in our business too. We kind of lay out all our options and what we could potentially do, and then we prioritize the things that do have that low-hanging fruit or the overlap or the double dip potential, because that means less work for more money.
We are all about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so then the other thing you said, which really stuck with me, is leveraging or getting more juice out of your social media posts. So if you've created something for a client and you're like, I'm really proud of the work, sharing it once on social media as a static post, that's not worth it, okay? I feel like we really need sound effects. But instead what you can do is, Katie mentioned several ways, but you can't just post it once and expect people to hear you. We all know that you post something once, people see it for like 24 hours maybe, and it's the smallest pool, mostly of people who already follow you, and then it's gone forever and they completely forget about it because we all have short attention spans. Instead, what you can do, it is sad. Instead, what we can do is take that post and figure out 7 different ways within that to showcase. Maybe it's a before and after transition. Maybe it's a carousel of all the brand assets. Maybe it's a mock-up. And instead of just posting it once, you really want to share about it multiple times. And you don't have to share about it in a row either. You can pull things from the archives. And if you're like, you know what, I'm actually not that proud of it anymore, you can just make some updates. It's not really a big deal. But I think, Katie, you were the one who reminded me that this was something I could do, because you would post something like a year after you had originally posted it. And I'd be like, oh my God, I love that piece. And it kind of like tickled my brain. And I was like, I feel like I've maybe seen this before. And it also helped me recognize your style, because I would see the same thing and they would all start to relate, or maybe it was a different colorway, or maybe you showed me the flat file first that you shared to your grid, but then the next time you shared it as a mock-up or as the final product. So there's so many ways you can share the same piece of art multiple ways. And that's just way smarter. Instead of posting something new every single day, you're going to just drill yourself into the ground.
I think people worry that they're going to come off as lazy or something when that's really the exact opposite. You're working hard by putting this piece out again and again in different ways, and you're working smart, which is what we want to do. You can't just assume people are going to see it one time and remember it. Heck no, they're not going to remember it. I mean, well, I don't want to be dashing your art dreams. They might remember it, but it's going to really stick with them if they see it again.
People need to hear something 7 times for it to stick. Obviously, people with like photographic memories, I think is the term, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I need to hear it 17 times instead of 7. And I need it broken down 17 different ways. But people need to hear something 7 times for them to like make a buying decision. And so if we need to see it 7 times to make a buying decision, for us to remember it and to think about it, we need to see it 3, 4, 5 times. And so it just builds that brand awareness too. When you said you might think you're lazy, that really touched something in my brain and my heart that was like, oh yeah, I don't want people to think I'm lazy. And I don't want to be seen as taking a shortcut, but I do want to be working way smarter. And whenever people say something to me like, oh wow, you're so productive, it's almost like a defense goes up that's like, I just know how to do things smarter. I'm not doing something that you can't do too. I'm just doing something a way that maybe you haven't thought about doing it. Also, I am very productive, so thank you.
You can do something in 5 minutes. That would take me 5 hours sometimes.
Vice versa.
Yeah, I guess we all have those little things. But
yeah, Katie and I have learned that our brains just process things really differently, and Katie can work on the same task for like 3 days or 3 weeks, and I'm like, that would take me 8 years.
Yeah. Well, that's my problem. I go too far in that direction. I'll get too focused, and that's why we are such a beautiful balance.
Yin and yang, baby. Anyway, okay.
Yin and yang, baby.
We need just like a snippet reel of all the times we laughed during an episode, because someone said like, oh, I like your personality. And I was like, we just have a lot of fun doing this. Anywho, the second hack we're going to talk about, take a shot every time you hear me say hack, is
they're going to be
key
drunk.
Commands. Okay, it's key commands and shortcuts. And Katie and I, it's so funny. We had the same story, but how did you figure out the key commands and shortcuts?
Well, I knew some of them, but I had an internship while I was still in my senior year in college, and the person who was in charge of me, who was extremely organized, really amazing person, he had both me and the other intern print out all of the Photoshop, and I think we did Illustrator too, but we were mostly working in Photoshop, all the Photoshop key commands, and tape it right next to our computer and start to learn those and get it in our heads. And I still to this day remember how he told me to remember duplicate as duplicate. So I always think I'm going to duplicate this layer because it's Command J on the Mac.
I know.
And Photoshop. Oh, you're like, oh, believe me. But I'm just, you seemed confused. So I'm explaining. It's just like,
I was trying to see if like, just because it sounds funny.
Duplicate. I don't know. It stuck with me. Maybe it'll stick with someone now.
Yeah, no, it's going to stick with me forever.
But he had little things like that to remember. And then that's why I hate switching over to PC, because the key commands are different and my hands just won't go to the right places. And sometimes my husband, Jared, he just got into the Mac world recently. And so he'll ask me what a key command is, and I'll like show him the shape of my hand.
Yeah.
I'll show him like a claw hand, and he's like, what is that? And I'm like, I literally don't know.
It's J and command.
It's like, I don't know what it is, but I can feel it.
Shape. Yeah. I love that so much. I also had a printout, but something that I think a lot of people don't know is that you can create a workspace, like in InDesign, you can create a workspace that has the tools that you need, and in Illustrator and Adobe. We're talking about Adobe products. I don't know. There's key commands in lots of programs, but we're talking about specifically for us, like Photoshop and Illustrator and InDesign.
Anything you can key command is great.
I think you can teach your own Adobe, your own key commands. So like you could change them if you want. So
that's what Nolan did in our webinars.
Step and repeat. And it was mind blowing. If you don't know Nolan, whose last name
Pelletier.
I don't know.
He's
I think
amazing.
It's French. He's amazing. And the way he uses Photoshop is really like probably the way it's intended to be used. But
I think it's just really creative.
It's
Yeah, I
really
don't know if
creative.
it's that it was intended to be used that way, but he's
You're right.
just so efficient, and he's created his
Yes.
own workflow that works exactly for the type of stuff he does
Yes.
over and over and over again.
It's not that it was intended. You're right. It's not that it was intended that way. It's that he has really utilized the capabilities of making life easier by creating these patterns with step and repeat. And it's so cool. We did a workshop with him, and I need to rewatch his class all the time to like see how quickly he was able to do things. But this is a really great way to make your workflow faster, is by learning how to do these key commands and shortcuts. The other
And
thing is that
programming your
there are,
own. Like
yes, and programming your own, figuring out which things you use the most. And part of that is taking classes and learning how other people are working, so you can see how we learned so much from Nolan.
One cool thing with Nolan too is he did give us a download of his key commands. So he was able to export them, and I'd have to research how to do this. Everybody in the workshop got a download, and it loaded those key commands into our Photoshop so that then they worked for us too. And so most of what he was doing was like, he does lots of repetitive geometric shapes. So it was all sorts of things to like rotate and repeat and duplicate and move a certain unit and applying brushes and stuff like that. So just to give you an idea of the type of stuff that you can start to program.
I think this is a perfect segue into the next hack we have, which is the Photoshop actions and batching. And I saw recently that there is this, I think it's a plugin, and it's like a logo generator. And it's where if you put everything on its own artboard, it will export. I can't remember exactly how it is, but when you do a branding project for someone and you're like, I need it in black and white, I need it on white, I need it transparent, I need it in PNG, I need a PDF, I need the AI file, I need blah, 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 blah. You can like use this logo plugin, and we have to research it, put it in the show notes, but it like exports 800 files for you ready to go. It's like probably based on the artboards that you have, but then it categorizes them, or I don't know. I haven't used it obviously because I don't do a lot of branding work anymore, but I saw it and my mind was like, it was so cool.
That's awesome.
And the same thing goes for actions. You can do like a file. Basically, your computer will record the information in its robot brain. If you're doing something, like you'll press the record button and then you'll be like, edit, change image size, and then crop this, and then change the color profile, and then add this layer, and then you'll stop recording and then do it to like press play, and it'll do it to all your open documents if you just keep pressing play. And so there goes like 18 hours of
then
production.
If you use the batch features, you can apply an action across a whole folder of files, so you don't have to open each one individually and then play your action. So that's something I learned at that internship too from my amazing mentor. I had to crop and take the background off of 1 million different types of Louisville sluggers, because that was one of the clients. It was such an insanely huge project, but he showed me how to do it by doing an action that I could apply across every single one. I had to do the same thing. And then I just used that batching feature, or like there's also an image processor. I'm not sure exactly. There's a difference between them, but one of them you can run, maybe both, you can run actions across a set of files. And it was just magic. Like you watch it, it comes up on your computer and it like flashes the file, does the action, and then closes the file and saves it out just how you want. It's just literal magic.
Wow.
I'm getting heated.
I didn't know about the folder thing, that you could do the whole folder at once without opening it. But I had to do this when I signed with my licensing agent, and I need to rescale everything. I need to like place the images. It saved me like days and days of work. Anyway, that's a great one. If that applies to you, go use that. The other one, we're moving on to a new one. That's a quick one. That's easy. The next one is using mockups. Holy crap. I remember when I first started putting my portfolio together, I was like, well, I have to have a prototype made and I have to have a photo shoot. I'm not going to do that. That's so expensive. You can easily do a prototype, or you can use a mock-up. We get a lot of ours at Creative Market, and show your work in different ways. And this is really helpful for those passion projects that you're doing that aren't going to come to fruition. Or if you just want to test out how something's going, or if you want to deliver something to the client and show them this is what it will look like, I think clients have a really hard time understanding a flat graphic and how it will translate to print methods or to like a cylinder or to real life, basically. And so mockups are a really great way to do that. But also it goes back to that first hack of double dipping, is like showing a flat graphic, then showing it on a mockup completely changes the vibe. And so it really gives you some ways to elevate your work.
I have bought
See the
so
value.
many. I've bought so many mock-ups from Creative Market over my years, especially when I was doing my art direction job. And it was just so nice because they give you like a downloadable, whatever kind of file. Usually I like Photoshop. And then you can just go in and there's a place where they'll say, place your image here. And all you do is you stick your graphic, whatever it is, in that file. And then you press save and it will update and wrap it around a cylinder or put it on bedding with the wrinkles included. Or it's another thing that's literal magic. And it saves so much time and it looks so professional. People are always blown away when they see those. They're like, how did you do this? You're like,
right.
I'm magic. Don't worry
and
about
there's
it.
hundreds and thousands of different options. So you don't have to use the same one over and over. And you can really get creative. And you can also change the background color and adjust things. And I have bought a couple where you can pull in specific elements and move them around. It's like a still life. And so I'll maybe like include one element in this one and a different element in another one, and then change the color scheme. So it doesn't look like I'm using the same thing over and over. And this has really helped us to like speed up the process and elevate our work. And I think it's just a nice way to showcase different ways of doing something. Granted, we totally see the value of doing a photo shoot for a real product, but it is expensive. And so this is a great way to start. And when you're ready to do a photo shoot, or we have taken every photo class and neither of us have the photography skills that we should for the amount we've invested into it. Especially we live in different cities, different states actually, and different time zones even. And so it's really nice to have something that we could just put it on a mock-up and then move on. So this is a really great...
helps too to sell your idea to a client because they're not proficient in design. They're not used to seeing a flat graphic and trying to picture it in their brain and put it on their product and see how it would look. So it's so much easier to show them a real professional, like this is what your final product is going to look like, or an approximation of it. And then all of a sudden they get it and they get really excited because it's like real to them. And so I always go into bigger branding meetings, or if I'm redoing packaging, I always show a mock-up because it gets them really, really excited. And it just helps everybody get on the same page about what the final result is really going to be like.
For sure. I think another really great thing about mock-ups is that you can then use those images. You can put them on your website. You can use them for social media, but then you can actually pin those images to Pinterest. This is our next hack. Pin those images to Pinterest and use them as a way to get found so you can get more work. And I feel like Pinterest is so underutilized, but clients, and it really is. Clients, art directors, everyone is on Pinterest looking for inspiration. And so if you're showcasing your work on there and it's leading back to your website, people can see what you're doing. And it's a really, really great way to cross-promote your work. And it's not a social media platform. You don't have to leave comments. You don't have to... You can just organize all your inspiration and point people back to your website, which I think is really, really important.
Think of it as a search engine because that's what it is. How do you use Pinterest? You have an idea in mind and you keyword search for that idea, and then they give you related things. So a really important thing to remember when you're pinning your image is not just to put the image up there and call it a day, but to add some great SEO or search engine optimization, which means you're putting in relevant keywords that are describing your image. And you have to think, if I were an art director or whoever your ultimate client is searching, what would the keywords be that I would put in to find my own image?
Love it. Okay, so that's a simple place to start, is pinning your images. That's a great hack. But this next one really, I feel like, is our philosophy. And that's not starting from scratch. We've done a lot of starting from scratch time and time again, but we're gotten a little sick of it. No, I think we just have started to realize as we've grown our business that there are so many ways we need to be more efficient so that we can stay in our zone of genius, which means we can do the things that only we can do in our business, and we can hire or delegate people to do the things that we're not so great at. And so some of the ways we've done this is by hiring help, but some of the ways we've done this is by just buying templates. Or a great example is we have presentations, we do webinars, and we teach courses. And instead of just trying to design from scratch what a presentation should look like, we've started with templates from Creative Market for Google Slides or for Keynote. I remember the first one we bought, we were in a very different brand story than we are now, but it had hundreds of pages to choose from, and we would pull the elements. And now we use Google Slides, and we just recently bought a template that we could totally customize. And I think a lot of people assume that when you buy a template, whether it's a mock-up or a presentation template or a social media story template, is that you are going to have something that looks like everyone else. And the thing is, your brand should be strong enough that your colors and the way that your language speaks will really set it apart from the base template that you're buying. It's just a starting point. And so if you compare the template we bought to what our final product looks like, it's not at all the same. It's really just giving us a place to start a couple feet ahead instead of starting way behind.
Yeah,
And
think of it as a
really
framework off of which you can build.
Yeah, I love that. That's a good way to think of it. The same goes for like website starter packs, like a template. You don't need to have a completely unique website that's never been done before. You need a framework that you can build off. And typically these frameworks do well because they are tested and proven to work. And so having a big header image on a website is very common because it often works. And so it's not just like someone was like, this design will look cool, but makes no sense. Let me sell it. It's because they've seen that there's this pattern of people using this type of style, and then they've added elements that they think will be unique, and then you jazz it up. Our favorite word.
We've seen so many people get stuck on their websites because they're so intimidated by looking at the blank page and thinking, well, I'm a designer. I have to design the crap out of this. It's got to be stunning, never seen before designs. And really using a template and just letting your work speak for itself is so much easier and so much stronger and more impactful. Your work is already designed. Your work already is full of your voice and infused with your voice. All you really need to do is showcase that and show, that you've got organization. You can explain yourself. You can walk people through a story or a concept, and you really don't need to overthink it. That's why I love starting with a template, because if I don't, I will sit there and overthink it for days. It just won't get done.
Same. Yeah, it's a good one. It's really helped me. And I remember at the beginning feeling really hesitant to do that because we said it makes us feel we assume it's going to make us lazy or that we're taking a shortcut, but it's actually the smarter thing to do. And when you have the skills to make it your own and customize it, it truly looks totally different. And we've also, between the two of us, been able to take the same template and do completely different things. So that's pretty cool.
The level of the quality of the templates have improved so much in the past 5 years. There's so much you can do now on Squarespace, and you can take a template and again, just use it as a framework, and then you can really move things around and customize and make it your own. So yeah. Try to not overthink things. Give yourself a leg up by not starting from scratch.
That's one of the reasons we do like Creative Market, is because we know it's our peers who are creating those products. Mm-hmm. And so it's other designers like us who have done really great work, and now they're letting us take advantage of it and use it. Plus, we know that the money is going to support them as well, which is really great.
Everybody wins. It's a win-win-win.
Win. So one of the things that I used to do to build up my library of assets, because you might be thinking, okay, I want to buy some of these, but they can get expensive if I need tons of new ones. Creative Market does a free goods of the week, I believe it is. Maybe it's of the month, but I'll double check that and put a link to it. And what I did was every week as I was starting, or every month, I would download the free goods. They actually sync right to my Dropbox. So I still have them all ready and available for me. Is you can just add them to your library. Even if you're I don't know if I'll ever use this one, just take it for now because they're only free for that duration, and add it to your library so you can come back to it later. And it's a really nice way to build up that kind of library of assets. So that's really
I have
cool.
A whole separate hard drive that's just assets from that kind of thing and from saving them and being a young student designer and trying to compile everything. I've got all these kinds of background textures and mock-up. The mock-ups take up a ton of room, but they're so good and so robust.
I think I have
everything.
I think I have 800 business card mock-ups, because business cards were the thing when we were graduating. The coolest business card wins. And now I don't even think people
We didn't have that at our school. Nobody was making
didn't?
business cards at our school. No. They were making
Yeah,
their
no,
own business cards.
yeah, or like including them in the mock-up before the website. But now websites are like the first place you go. Or now when
That's
you
so
do a brand
interesting.
presentation, you would include the Instagram instead of like, we didn't do that for
Mm-hmm.
sure. But now, okay, anyway, Instagram is your business card, isn't it? It actually
Yeah.
kind of is. It's not your website. I want to make that very clear. Instagram is not your website. Instagram is your business card.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like some like marketing guru has definitely explained this 10 years ago and I'm just catching on.
Well, even now, like the networking that people in suits will go to little networking events and they have, instead of a business card, they have like a QR code on their phone and
Oh
they're like, here.
gosh.
And then you'll just scan it and then you have all their links to everything.
I do think that the QR code can be effective, but like if it's just to one website, your domain should not be that complicated that I can't just type it in. Right? Like
Yeah,
if you're going to like a page that has everything, that makes sense.
Yeah. I was not on the QR train before, but now that it's integrated
Now.
with the iPhone, and I don't know what's going on with other things outside of Apple. I live in an Apple world. But now that you can just
a
like,
girl
pull up your
in an
just
Apple
a girl in
world.
an Apple world. Now that you can just pull up your photos and
Yeah,
like hover over it and it comes like that's easy. And
that's true.
all the restaurants around here are still doing that after COVID. Do you have that too? Like instead of menus, they just have it on the table.
What's a restaurant? I have children that are 5 and 3, so I don't know. It's possible. Time will tell.
She's never been to a restaurant, people.
Don't know what that is. Anyway, okay.
I'll take you out one day.
Thanks. I appreciate that. The last hack is really
Drink.
just like a umbrella. It's an umbrella. And it's just
It's a literal umbrella.
It's to keep the rain off of you.
Do you get it?
It's time hacking. And so yeah.
I'm so sorry. I keep cutting you off. Go ahead.
Okay.
What is the hack?
So there's a couple different things that I wanted to touch on within this umbrella, under this umbrella. And it's time hacking, which can be so many things. And the things that have really stuck for me, there's 3 that I want to mention. One, I guess I should preface by saying, if you haven't already noticed, I have ADHD and I was diagnosed when I was like 12. So this isn't diagnosed by Dr. TikTok. This is something I've worked on for a really long time. And it's one of my superpowers, but also something that can be something I need to work on. And so the Pomodoro technique is, you can Google it and there's like 8 billion ways it's interpreted, but it's basically setting a timer for like 20 minutes and having focused time. And it's like a sprint. And I find that I work really well in sprints and then get up and like take a 5-minute break, or I think it's 3 20-minute Pomodoros and then a 20-minute break. And I find this works really well for the way my brain works. So that's one of the things that works well for me. And if you're like procrastinating something or you need to do something that you're having trouble focusing on, just try 20 minutes. That's like a bite-sized piece. That works well for me. Another thing that works really well for me is everything that's been mentioned in Atomic Habits, which is this great book. We'll link to it below. And one specific thing is habit stacking, where you like pair something that you maybe don't love doing with something you're already doing that you do enjoy. So let's say you love having your morning coffee and it's part of your routine, but you really want to start adding a 20-minute walk into your day. What if you have your morning coffee at the end of your walk? Or what if you walk while you're having your coffee? And so there's these ways to like pair things together that helps you succeed, I guess, would be what I'm looking for. Okay. And then the third one is the system that my dad taught me when I was really young for all the ideas. And I think most creative entrepreneurs end up being multi-passionate. And so they end up having a ton of ideas, right? And so instead of just putting them all in the notes app on your phone and being like, oh my God, I have so much to do, when half those things you're never, ever going to do, what my dad taught me to do is create an A list, a B list, and a C list. And on your A list are the things you need to do today. That could mean taking out the garbage. That could mean responding to emails. That could mean taking pictures for your whatever, new headshots. That could mean posting one thing to social media, but they're digestible, bite-sized action items. And that's like something we really try and do at Good Type, is really make things digestible.
Nom, nom, nom,
So
nom.
all that's on your like,
It's my one contribution.
So then on your B list is the things like the bigger picture, the things that you're working towards. So Katie and I are currently working on a new webinar. So I would, on the B list would be work on webinar, or like the final result of what that webinar will be. But on the A list would be find template for webinar slides. It's like a bite-sized piece of that. And then on our C list are things that we are not even thinking about today. We're not looking at these things. They are like big goals that you're going to come back to in a couple weeks and see if they still align with you. Like, let's say Katie and I were like, launch a footwear company. Maybe we could do a footwear collaboration. I don't know. I'm just like thinking of things off the top of my head. We would put that on the C list. Thank you. We put that on the C list and then come back to that maybe every quarter and say, like, do we still think that a footwear company is a good idea for us? Does that align with us? Maybe.
You got me thinking about type shoes.
Yeah. So that's just not something we're going to prioritize right now. It's just like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we did this? So that's on the C list. So that's kind of how I run my list. I have a piece of paper in front of me every day with my A list. We use Notion to keep track of like everything, and we have lists within that. And then I will say just one other thing that has been helping. I am currently, as in just started it today, but it's really little. I'm reading this book called The 12-Week Year. And by reading, I mean listening on Audible.
It's the new reading. Listening is the new
It's not.
reading.
It's actually not.
That's what I do too. I never read a book, but I listen to like 20 a year.
I listen to one book and I read a different book. Like right now I'm listening to one and I'm reading a different one because I do them at different times of the day for different activities. Like I read at night, physically read to like relax and get ready for bed, but I listen to a book while I'm driving.
It's so stressful to me on my eyes. I'm like, I've been looking at screens all day. I don't want to stare at type, you know? Shout out to those of us who just listen. We're valid too, because people get fired up about this. They're like, "Oh, you did you listen to that book? Did you listen to that book? Was that hard?"
The way you said that. You know what? I prefer to listen to audiobooks that have an accent, a UK British.
Oh, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, if it's not, I'd rather read it. Okay. And then in my head, they are British. Okay. So that book, I'm literally only like 20 minutes in and I'm already like, tell me more. I was worried it was going to be like the 4-hour work week, which no shame to that, but that makes no sense for where Katie and I are in our business. Maybe in 20 years, but right now it makes no sense. We're like in the thick of it. Into the thick of it. Okay. So the concept is that we have this idea that a year is 12 months long. And then what happens is in January and then like back to school. And then at the end of the year, we see these like, you know, big progress and our expectations are really high and then we're stressed. But what if we decide, because a year is just a random measurement that doesn't actually mean anything. What if we decide that a year is just 12 weeks? Then you're always working in this small digestible amount of time and you are forced more quickly to reach those goals. Like you're like, in these next 12 weeks, I want to do X, Y, and Z. So you have 3 months to meet your goal. And so the pressure's kind of on, but not in a way that's overwhelming. Like, what can I accomplish? But it's like you set a goal and it's so top of mind. And every day you have to take an action towards that. And I think part of it is about making more realistic goals, but the other part is making it within reach, right? Because like in a year, so much can happen and so much unexpected. But 3 months is so much more digestible. So anyway, I'm only like 20 minutes into this audiobook, but so far I'm like, I think this makes a lot of sense for my sprint, not marathon runner brain. So we'll see. I'll report back. Anyway, those are our hacks. Take a shot for working smarter instead of harder. They've really helped us in our business. We keep coming back and like finding new ways we can be more effective. And it's been great. I'm into it.
Hacks keep us from burnout all the time, and we don't want to be in burnout land.
Yeah. Okay. Well, super big shout out to Creative Market for sponsoring this episode. We genuinely have been using Creative Market for years. Our Dropbox folders and our extra hard drives can prove it. But it's fun to share and take a look back at some of the things we've bought before, and you'll see them in our portfolios as well. So thanks for tuning in, and I guess we'll catch you on the flippity flop.
All good things.